Madam Chair, you are live.
Excellent. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second January meeting of the Annapolis Education Commission. Very excited to have you all here. We have a number of great guests with us tonight, and we have a pretty packed agenda. We have reached quorum, and it is 6:05 p.m. So I think we will call the meeting to order. We will, well, let's see. Fish isn't here. So we're going to call to order. We will do a roll call. I think what we'll do is just go around the room and do an introduction based on what I see on the screen, because we have a lot of guests here with us tonight. So we'll start with Janet Norman.
Hi, Janet Norman, Annapolis High parent of 2018, 2021 graduates, previous AHS PTA pres, and previous chair of the commission. And thank you for everything you all do for education.
Great. John?
I'm John Corin. I'm president of Bicycle Advocates for Annapolis and Anne Arundel County by AAA. I also chair the County Bicycle Advisory Commission. We advocate for people walking, biking, and other forms of micromobility. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for being here. Lisa?
Lisa Rodbian, I represent Annapolis, the city of Annapolis outlying areas on the county council. I'm a former AACPS teacher and a current AACPS substitute teacher.
Thank you for all of your levels of service. Odessa?
Odessa Ellis, 3 graduates from Annapolis High School long time ago, and just happened to be here.
Thank you for being here. Laura?
Mhm.
Sorry, having issues with Zoom. Laura Booth, Ward 7 representative. I am the parent of a 2021 AHI grad, and my youngest is a freshman in the Apex Visual Arts program at AHI right now.
Excellent. Fish. My Zoom is also being weird. I don't know if it's like a Zoom thing, but anyway, sorry, go Fish.
Fish Stark, Ward 1 representative, former educator, passionate about public schools. In lieu of listing out all my involvements, which many folks here have heard, I'll just say one of my proudest is being on the advisory board of New Village Academy, given the company that we have.
Great, thank you. Rami, and there we go, Romy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Romy Pittman, former Annapolis High School teacher and current founder of New Village Academy. And nobody else reacted, but I loved it when you said "Go Fish."
All right, Andy.
Hi, I'm Andy Deal, transit planner for the Anne Arundel County Office of Transportation, mainly focusing on fixed route, call and ride, and bicycle and pedestrian planning.
So much. Oh, John, you jumped around. Corey.
Hi, my name is Corey Mackle. I currently have 2 kids in the Annapolis cluster at Annapolis High School, and I am the secretary right now.
I wasn't sure whether you said currently or apparently, but I heard apparently you have 2 kids. I was thinking sometimes I also feel like apparently I have some children.
Currently, definitely currently.
Apparently. Sorry, Julian, I did switch over. I went past you, but if you would like to introduce yourself, you can introduce yourself also. in the background.
Oh, I don't need any attention here, Jess. I'm just here making sure you guys all operate beautifully.
Perfect. Thank you. And we have Carrie.
Hi, everyone. Carrie Berger. I'm counsel to you guys should you need it.
Thank you. Sarah. I know Sarah said she was going to. Okay, there you go.
Hi, I'm Sarah Kennard. I'm president of the Bates Middle School PTA, and I have a child currently at Bates in the APEX program.
Enid.
Hi, I'm representative, longstanding member of this commission, representing Ward 3. I have 2 children that went through the Annapolis cluster, past president, PTA president of Bates, past president, PTA at Millsboro, and 40 years teacher, retired from Anne Arundel County.
Thank you very much. And Grace?
Grace Matthews, educator for 47 years, taught in Anne Arundel County, elementary, middle, high, GED, you name it, I've done it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Grace. And Rob.
Sorry. Did you say Rob?
I did. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear. Alderman Rob Savage, Ward 7, and I'm on our transportation committee, so looking forward to hearing the conversation tonight. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. I am going to share our agenda for this evening. Maybe. Can you all see the agenda? Perfect. So in front of you, you have the agenda. You also should have received in your email this afternoon. Thank you for your patience. So we had to move a few things around and get some things on there. So as you noticed, normally Dr. Tobin is with us at the beginning of the meeting. Tonight she had a previous commitment, but she would be joining us towards the end of the meeting. So does anyone have any changes or changes to the agenda? Anything that we need to add or anything else? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just to be clear, the Transportation Roundtable includes all of us, but since those are our special guests that are here specifically for that, that is why they are listed in the roundtable. I just was reading that and figured I should double clear that. Okay, perfect. So that is that has been shared, and then I am going to pull up the minutes from last month, and thank you so much to Corey. Hold on.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Corey.
Yes.
While you're pulling those up, Jess, I'm going to suggest a amended revision to the a revision to the draft minutes, please.
Okay. If my computer will behave, then we can do that. Sorry, I'm not sure why everything is being.
I can say that while you're trying to, I can explain.
Yeah, go ahead with your, go
Sure.
ahead, because I'm
Okay.
having.
So the minutes, draft minutes need to delete the following phrase. Janet Norman moved to approve the minutes of December 25th. That is not, did not happen. So we did not have a meeting on December 25th and no minutes were approved. So we'll take that.
Yeah, that was just the agenda. I think actually what it should say, Corey, is that you move, it should be that we moved to, that we were going to approve it next time, or you can just delete it altogether, regardless.
Just delete it because it's the wrong date and everything.
Okay. So let me just pull up these minutes.
No, hold on. No. I I was told that one of the things that I needed to do was, I guess whenever Rachel stopped doing the minutes, I needed to go ahead and do those.
Corey, it's right here. It's you're right in that it's this right here, this one line. Can you see, if you see the screen?
Yeah, that's deleted.
That's the only thing that didn't happen. So that should get deleted.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that was one of the things that Hillary was teaching me in doing the minutes. So
Right.
she was
So
like
this
writing.
next time we do the minutes, the next time you do the minutes, then you can say Janet and Norman have amended the minutes, and then whoever moved to approve them, and then that. So that's the only.
Were approved.
Yeah, I sent out the wrong draft in because that wasn't in the one that I was supposed to send.
Okay. Is that the only thing?
That's the only revision that I have.
Okay. Okay, so these are the minutes.
I move to accept the minutes as revised.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Perfect. And Corey, thank you. Very exciting to have minutes again. Very, very exciting. So, all right. So now we are gonna go on to the transportation roundtable, and transportation has been something that we have gone around and around with here on the commission for a long time, but certainly in the years since COVID, I feel like it's become even more of an issue or more of a conversation. Maybe for certain, I'm not sure. Anyway, and how transportation is and can be a barrier to attendance at the schools, and what can be done to improve transportation on all levels in all of our different jurisdictions, right? So for the Annapolis cluster in particular, we have obviously a few things working all at the same time. We have a very large percentage of our students that are not car riders, are not bus transported students. So we have that. We have a high population of families who don't own vehicles. They don't own personal vehicles. I would say I've never done a study. I don't know if anyone here has done a study or if there's any information on this, but I would guess that out of all of Anne Arundel County, there are probably more people who lack a personal automobile here or access to a personal automobile here in the city of Annapolis than anywhere else, because pretty much anywhere else in the county, you have to have a car to live where you live. There are very few places, maybe in Glen Burnie a little bit, or if you're in like downtown Crofton, in one of the town centers, but otherwise it's pretty impossible to live without a car, without access to a car. It's not easy in Annapolis, but maybe it's easier than in some areas. And certainly,
Jess, you're quite right. The Baltimore Metropolitan Council has data on this, and it's exactly as you say. Annapolis, Brooklyn Park, Glen Burnie are the principal areas that have much lower household car ownership than the rest of the county.
And that plays in when you're looking at the education system, right? That plays into getting kids to and from the schools. It plays into getting kids to and from activities and sports, performances, anything that happens within the schools and as part of the schools, and as part of just life, raising children. So there's that. And then we of course have the county and the school system and the city all playing together. In other parts of the county, you just have the county and the school system that have to work together to solve these problems. Here we have the added part of the city of Annapolis, and each has its own governance, and each has its own transportation system, and each has its own rules. And in some cases, there's some confusion over, various parts, right? Forest Drive is always a confusion. We saw that 2 weeks ago. Who's going to plow the sidewalks, right? Who's going to take care of, whose responsibility is making sure the sidewalks are plowed or cleared? Who's going to plow the streets? All those things, right? And there are other parts like Rao Boulevard and other parts. So what I wanted to do, what I really had hoped that we could do with, is to have everyone here and really start the conversation, not just within our commission, because we can talk about the issues that we see. For those who don't know, I live in Eastport. I live on President Street. Corey and I live across from each other. I'm in Ward 8. She's in Ward 6. We have a large percentage of our students that ride buses to get to Annapolis High School. If you miss the bus to get to Annapolis High School, and you live anywhere on the Annapolis Neck Peninsula, but particularly in our neighborhood where we also have a large percentage of people who don't have access to personal vehicles, it's an hour-and-a-half bus ride. If you can get a bus, if there's a bus running when you need to get a bus, if you miss the bus, or if you want to stay after school and come back because you want to play sports, or you are in a play and you have practice, or whatever what you need tutoring help, it's an hour-and-a-half bus ride to Annapolis High School or from Annapolis High School. And then this, of course, goes into further of our community as a whole, into workforce development as well. We have a huge issue at Annapolis High School with a lack of cafeteria workers, and the sort of lower wage positions are open, but a lot of those shifts are 3 hours, right? That's a 3-hour cafeteria shift, or maybe like a 4 or 5 hour cafeteria shift. It takes you 3 hours to and from on a bus to get there to work this job. That's not a calculation that's going to work for most people, right? And if it's that difficult to get to and from. So how can we make it easier to get to and from the high school? How can we make it easier to get to and from the middle school? Their walking radius for Annapolis Middle School is 1.5 miles. So that everyone knows where Annapolis Middle School is on Forest Drive. That walking radius ends at the corner of President and Madison Street, which is 2 houses down from where I live. That's a long way. 1.5 miles is a long way for an 11-year-old 6th grader. It's a long way for a 14-year-old 8th grader, but it's particularly a long way for an 11-year-old 6th grader, and particularly a long way in, say, the weather that we've had for the past 2 weeks. And it's a long way when you consider that's 1.5 miles in one direction. It's 3 miles in both directions. It's a 1 mile walking radius to Eastport Elementary. And then in our current political situation, that has to be brought up and play into it as well, right? We have a 1 mile radius for kids to walk to and from school. They can't get bus transportation. We have a 1.5 mile radius. And there is a concern currently about how safe are students between the front door of their house and the front door of their school. If they're walking out and they're getting on a bus 20 feet away from their house and they're taking a bus, they are protected on that bus. If they have to walk 1.5 miles to their school, or 1 mile to their school, what might happen to them, and can their parents now safely walk them to and from the school? So these are some of the things that have been going on, that we've been talking about. And what I really wanted to do was to sort of open up and really have a roundtable. Unfortunately, the school system was not able to participate tonight. So that is a missing link in the conversation, but hopefully we will be able to have this conversation. And my goal is to put forth, so our mission as the Education Commission, and then I'll stop talking. Our mission as the Education Commission is to find resources, to advocate for resources, and to find solutions. And we all are on this commission because we want to be useful. We want to be helpful. We want to create solutions and work with every single one of you. Bike AAA, Andy, we want to work with all of you. Fish, you're sideways. I don't know if Fish is sideways to anyone else, but for some reason he's sideways to me. And we want to work together with everybody so that we can make the best possible outcome for our students from pre-K through the last day of senior year, and make it safe, make it easy, and make transportation to and from school not a barrier to education, to participation, to activities, or to anything else. So that's my little speech about why we're here tonight. And Janet, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I'd just like to add the context that AACPS has had the policy for recess that they did not allow outdoor recess if the combination of the temperature and the wind chill went below 35. So if you had a 37-degree day with 4 degrees of wind chill, they would not allow 20 minutes of outdoor recess. And yet we are expecting our children to walk a mile and a half to school on an extremely icy, slippery, unplowed snowbank sidewalk in 14 degrees for an extended mile and a half. So
I will tell you that my 10-year-old brought that up.
yeah,
Why
those
don't
two parameters are diametrically opposed. So just keep that in mind of what we are expecting kids to get through before they even make it to school.
Perfect. So I think what I'd like to do is I guess what I'd like to do is to get an idea from our guests that are here, just a quick like 1 to 2 minutes. What are your thoughts on the situation as we just discussed, all of the different things, and where do you see yourself playing into this? And then or if you have any specific questions for the commission or about education. Maybe we'll start with Andy.
Sure, thank you. So I'd just like to say you did an excellent job of covering the difficulties we have in providing transportation for less fortunate members in Anne Arundel County. And John, as you pointed out, we have major populations in the city of Annapolis, in Glen Burnie / Brooklyn Park, and some over in Crofton that do not have a car but still need to get to school or work. That is something we're always working on. In terms of what our office is trying to do, we operate several fixed routes around the city, and we work with the city because that's obviously a different entity that also runs its own fixed routes. We're trying to increase the number of buses we have serving routes. We're trying to add additional stops, and we working on a program called Safe Routes to Transit and Safe Routes to Schools, which I'm sure you're very aware of, where we're improving the infrastructure to get to stop. So you were talking about a student leaving the home and on a bus they're safe. Well, sure, that bus stop might only be 2 blocks away, but if there's no sidewalk, it's a busy road, there's not even a shoulder, and they have to walk along that's very dangerous. So we're trying to work on that well of not just improving our transit, but improving pedestrian access to that transit. I think that's in terms of getting Annapolis students to Annapolis High School and the middle schools. I guess that's kind of the overview. Did you have any questions for me immediately?
Go ahead, Laura.
One question that has come up quite a few times is currently the community college offers free enrollment for students that are dual enrolled, who are enrolled in Annapolis High and in the community college, which is an excellent opportunity, and it's a real value to our students, especially students who may or may not be sure that they want to continue on after their high school education. So it just sort of eases them into it a little bit. And a lot of times it makes kids go, hey, wow, this is something that I do want to do and I want to continue after graduation. But the biggest barrier that we have is getting from the high school to the community college. Now, both of those are outside of Annapolis city limits, but there doesn't seem to be any good way to get a kid from the high school. So if they have we have a lot of students with partial schedules. So maybe they go to school for 2 periods in the building to get their math and language arts credits out of the way. Then they need to somehow get from the school to the community college to take a class in the afternoon. That's one area where the school system says, well, we don't have the money to run special buses back and forth, but it's not a direct, easy route. Is that something that's on your radar?
So I do have good news and bad news. Good news is that we do, as part of our fixed route network. I should also mention, I should have mentioned it before. All our services are fare free. The city of Annapolis does charge like $1 or $2, and I believe they have a reduced fare for children. But our systems are fare free. We operate a new route. It was called the Gold Extension. We've just renamed it, but it goes from Westfield Mall to the community college and then actually all the way up to the light rail. But we run that as a service that would basically take you from Annapolis to the community college at no cost. Now, that's the Westfield Mall is not the high school. We have a separate route called the parole route that connects those two. The bad news is like everything else, it's the time it takes them to get there. And we understand that it can be a long process waiting for a bus and then getting to the transfer point and waiting along. What that's referred to as headways, how quickly a bus runs in a given schedule. That is something that we really need to improve on. As with everything, it's just a question of resources, more buses and more drivers. So yes, we do offer services where students can, for free, get from the high school to the community college and back until quite late at night, I might add. But we cannot right now guarantee that it'll be a very quick journey.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Romy?
Hi, thanks. This is a great opportunity to ask specific questions. So I noticed that the South County bus, the Edgewater bus route changed slightly pretty recently within the last 6 months or so. So both for Annapolis students who are going to Cat South, and in my case, I'm thinking about our New Village Academy, which will open in August, and all of our students are getting to school by public transportation, both Annapolis kids and kids from surrounding areas. And notice that the South County bus no longer goes to Westfield Mall, or to the mall. It's not Westfield anymore. And so all of the other transfer points that are there, that students can, go to the mall, transfer, and go somewhere else, it cuts off South County from that hub and that transfer point. Just wondered why that took place, that change, and whether there's any chance of that getting restored.
Yeah, so the reason behind that is we're actually embarking on building a brand new transit center at the Harry S. Truman Park and Ride. It's going to be the first one in the county, actually, but that's going to serve as a major hub for county buses, city buses, MTA from Baltimore, and even a few Queen Anne's. So we're trying to slowly adjust all our routes, so that will be the new transfer point. That will be the new major hub instead of the mall.
Great.
Unfortunately, I do realize that right now that just makes it harder for students who live in Edgewater to get to the high school without having to transfer.
So the mall will no longer be a transportation hub?
The mall,
Yeah.
it will still, buses will still stop there, but we're trying to shift when that new facility is built, we will shift a lot of those routes to having their major transfer point at the Harry S. Truman Park and Ride.
But there's nothing but a park and ride at the park and ride, right? So that as a destination leaves a lot of people having to then transfer from there. So take two buses instead of one to get to any place that they would actually want to go.
Currently, yes. There is more transfer places though than just the park and ride. What is it called? The Harbor Shopping Center. There are several places that the yellow route is what serves the high school, and that overlaps with the Edgewater route at multiple different stops. So there's multiple places they would have the opportunity to transfer to that second route.
Okay, thank you. One thing, Lisa, I'm gonna have you ask your question, but then I also want John to talk because I know there's gonna be some correlation between the two, so I want to make sure he gets to do his introduction and then you as well, if you do, or actually if you're going to ask your question, and then you could sort of talk on behalf of yourself as the council person for the district, if that works.
Can I ask a quick question just about Andy's transfer hub? Andy, when do you anticipate this coming online, the new at the Harry Truman Park and Ride?
I can give you the optimistic answer or the realistic answer because a lot of this is out of our control. It has to do with state funding and, of course, federal funding, which is up in the air right now. But
right.
We are really hoping to get the plans finalized in the next few months and then break ground early next year, probably a year to finish construction. So everything goes well, it'd be towards the end of 2026. So
okay.
Yeah.
At the earliest. Great. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you. I would like to have a further conversation about the shifting of the transportation hub away from Annapolis Mall. A lot of our comprehensive rezoning, the Parole Town Center master plan, renewal were, and including some very specific zoning decisions were made with the understanding that the transportation hub would be at the corner of Bestgate Road and General's Highway. And so we now may be creating, if that transportation hub is no longer going to be at the mall, we now may have created some high density, or be allowing some high density housing where we expected to have a transportation hub. And it sounds like that is no longer the case.
So yes, the very simple reason for that is because the developer, we're looking to build the transfer hub at that corner of Bestgate Road, and we were working with the current owners of the mall for many, many months and just could not get an agreement that they were willing to sign. And it was holding up the project. They were not responding to us. They were not happy with any deal we proposed with them. So in order to get the project moving, we shifted to the Harry S. Truman Park and Ride, which is already county property, and with the goal of speeding it up. Now, we realized that there was a lot of high density mixed use development going on for that area. As I said, we're going to continue to run multiple fixed route transits services to that area. So by no means is that going to be a desert of transit. There will be many transit options there. It just won't be the hub.
Yeah, but that's not really the same thing. I mean, a transit hub and routes that go there are two significantly, in my opinion, significantly different things when you're making decisions about zoning. So this is actually not something I knew about, and so I would really like to be able to talk about this because this impacts legislation that the council has already passed, relying on having that transit hub at the mall. So I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I feel like we need to find a way to get that transit hub back to the mall. And if it means, council person, or I don't know, making additional phone calls to the folks at the mall, we literally upzoned properties expecting that transit hub to be there.
Lisa, I'd like to just jump in really quickly as a constituent and just say, when I just heard him say that, I was really excited to hear that it's at Harry S. Truman, actually, as somebody who has used transit, as somebody who has used the Park and Ride to go to and from DC, as somebody who, we have where the transit has is the corner of Bestgate and General's Highway, like where it is at the mall currently, the way the buses work in the mall currently makes it really difficult for anyone who lives on the Annapolis Neck part of the peninsula to use. Like, that's the reason it's an hour and a half to get to Annapolis High School, because the bus has to go all the way over to there and then go all the way over to there. And same thing, if I wanted to take the bus like to DC, if I wanted to commute to the bus to get to DC, it's the same thing. Like, I'd have to take the bus all the way over there and then take a bus to the Harry S. Truman Parkway. So it's an hour and a half for me to take a bus to get to the bus to go to DC, right? And one of the reasons I did want to say, the reasons that I have John on here as well, is because there's also not a safe route to get to any of these places for biking. And I know Rob is on here as well, and that's a big thing for, we've talked a lot about the biking, and so I see where you're saying as far as the legislation, that's a totally different thing. But I can tell you, as a resident who uses and would like to use public transportation, the idea of having it on Riva right there at 50 and Aris T. Allen and that's really like a transportation hub of all the different things. So it might not be the worst.
I feel like that's going to be really dependent on how you use the transportation system and what part of the, where you're coming from to get to that transportation hub. So anyway, I don't want to derail the conversation, but we made decisions to upzone properties based on having, having a transportation hub there. And so and actually there is almost a complete bike route from downtown Annapolis, from the city out to the mall. I know we are working on creating a shared use path along Riva, but there's still gaps. So anyway, I just wanted to make that known.
Thank you, Lisa. And that's also, again, why I wanted to make sure that we had our council people in here and, and Alderman Savage, and because these are all decisions that are gonna, these are all conversations that we sort of all rather than talking about them in bubbles, which I think is what happens a lot, talking about them all together. So, Rob, if you just have a quick question, otherwise I want John to introduce himself and talk a little bit about the bike situation, but you can go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'll wait.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, John.
Well, thanks. First of all, I'm very happy to follow two biking legislators in Rob Savage and Lisa Rodbian. So first, let me explain the hats that I wear in this conversation. Bike AAA is an all-volunteer 501c3, 11 years old, launched as a Leadership Anne Arundel project, advocating for safe cycling, for transportation, recreation, and fitness for people of all ages and abilities. So we're all volunteers, and we advocate for safe biking and also for safe walking. Walkers are not organized because at some point in the day, we're all walkers. Cyclists are a little more organized because we're something of a tribe, if you will. I also chair the Anne Arundel County Bicycle Advisory Commission that was launched in 2016 at Bike AAA's urging. And importantly, we have at that commission, while it's a county commission, we have reps from the city of Annapolis. So Eric Lashinsky, Will Rowell, Brian Callahan are regular attendees. Kurt Riegel, who chairs the Annapolis Transportation Board, and just recently Hugh Hayes, who's also on that board, come to our commission. We also have SHA there because to create a safe, interconnected network of biking and walking routes, we need all the jurisdictions at the table, city, county, and state. Because as you all know, if the road's got a number on it, Route Boulevard, even part of King George Street, West Street, those are state highway administration roads. Now, I'll mention a couple of things specific to schools. Andy mentioned that the county has done a Safe Routes to School assessment under a grant, and actually now is just starting a phase 2 of that. 17 schools out of the 80 or so county elementary schools were selected based upon a variety of criteria. 2 of them are in Annapolis, Tyler Heights and Georgetown East. We're in that phase 1 study. This was an assessment of looking at existing routes, what's the infrastructure like, where are the gaps, what could be done to make it safe to get from a neighborhood to a school. Sometimes that means a safer crossing. Sometimes that means filling a sidewalk gap, and so forth. But as just assessment level, I have learned through my 10 years of advocacy that it's a long time from assessment to get something into design. Sometimes securing right-of-way is necessary, and then into construction, and then finally have something completed on the ground that can be used. We know that for those that have a choice of walking, biking, or driving, that choice is only as good as the worst place you have to traverse from home to your destination. You can have 80% of it be great. If you live near the Poplar Trail, you've got a nice little stretch there, very safe, comfortable. But then if you've got to go across West Street or along West Street, then you're just not going to do it, especially when it comes to children. So we are very, very much focused on creating networks and closing those gaps and creating networks so that it becomes safer for more people, including children, to walk and bike from where they live to wherever they are trying to go. The county has a master plan called Walk and Roll. That's the bike and pedestrian master plan for the county. It was updated in a couple of years ago. Very robust, very ambitious plan. Some of it, I would say, is aspirational, will take decades before we ever see it, but others are in the works. The city of Annapolis has made good progress from, sort of enthusiasm for safe biking and walking to having actual projects that are in design, having secured grants from both state and federal sources. So you have, for example, what Mayor Buckley likes to call the WE. Think of it as just extension of the Poplar Trail towards downtown, down to Church Circle, roughly, and then westward out to, let's say, near the Double T Diner, which gets you to Parole Town Center, which has some safe places to bike and walk. It gets you to that side path that goes over to the hospital. But there's still a significant gap there. Romy and I met several months back and talked about can kids safely bike or walk from neighborhoods in Annapolis, from along Forest Drive or in Eastport or downtown Annapolis to the Annapolis Mall? And the answer is no. There's some awful gaps from like where Germantown Elementary, the end of the Poplar Trail at Admiral, to get from there over to the mall. I'll do it on a bike, but I would never have children do that steep hill under Route 50. So we're working hard to close the gaps, but and progress is coming, but it's never fast enough. So why don't I stop there? And I will mention that the City of Annapolis has an updated bike network site. I would encourage you to take a look at that. There's a list of the active projects: Poplar Extension, Hilltop Connector, College Creek Connector. There's a grant-funded study of Bay Ridge Avenue from basically from Eastport all the way to Quiet Waters. So there's information about all the active projects at that site, and if you like, I can put a link in the chat. But I'll stop there, and I see Jan's hand is up.
Yeah, so we don't have a chat, but you can email them to me, and I will send them out afterwards. If you want to email them to the email address, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you. I really appreciate everything you had to share. I think it's funny how we have really improved biking on one side and less on the other, and then we have bus availability on one side and less on the other. We can't get anything on either side. So Janet, go ahead. You had a question.
I just had a couple comments as someone who lived on Annapolis Neck Road for 20 years prior to the large scale townhouse development there. I walked and biked kids to Hillsmere Elementary by crossing at the Quiet Waters pedestrian crosswalk and going behind the library and down that muddy path to Hillsmere. One, I would like to say, please, the county, do a lighted flashing crosswalk at Quiet Waters. One, it gets dark all the time, so it's not a safe route now that you have 95 more townhouses and single family homes in that Preserve at Quiet Waters development. It is not a safe route to Hillsmere Elementary. You have 300 plus cars SUVs zooming down to Key School for drop off and pickup. And it's known that SUVs have a higher, they can't see small people as well as a lower sedan. So please upgrade that county crosswalk right there with a lighted flashing thing that actually stops the cars. I know as a full-size adult, I've had cars whiz right into me, not seeing and not slowing down there. I would also ask that you improve the bend at the Spa Creek Bridge by Chesapeake Children's Museum, because you physically can't continue riding your bike through that 90-degree bend at the bridge. And kids are going to crash and get hurt, and adults are going to hurt themselves. Make that a flow through, not a 90-degree stop. And every time I go down West Street, I am terrified that completely unflashed pedestrian crossing somewhere by where the old Bike Doctor was, you guys know, by the dry cleaner area, that one is just a death trap that we are going to kill someone's parent or child. I don't think children attempt it, but we're going to kill some adult trying to cross there. So that I've been to so many other places that have, you know, Ann Arbor, I biked all through there every time of day and night, just sane, lighted, flashing, smart pedestrian and bike resources. And why can't we have nice things here in Anne Arundel County? So
And the city of Annapolis.
please improve the safety of those ASAP.
So yeah, thank you for that. You know, I think if I know where the lines are, I think you mentioned one in the city, one in the county, and one at SHA. I think I'm sure you'll know the crossing at Hillsmere by Quiet Waters. That's county, right? Or is that city?
I think it's county because it's coming out from the entrance of the county park. And I think the city portion stop, you know, the library is county.
Right.
I think the shopping center is maybe
I
city.
think it's county. The Spa
think it's
Road,
county.
the Spa Road chicane, as it's called, and very
Yeah.
familiar with that because we wanted to take. If any of you have seen our trishaws where we take seniors out for bike rides,
Mm.
we can't get it through there. We would love to take people from the senior center at Bates.
Oh, they're like tricycle.
Yeah, we
built
can't.
things?
Yeah, can't get it through there. But I think that's city.
Okay.
I think that's city Spa Road, and then across West Street is State Highway. It's 450. It's Route 450.
Yeah. Well, regardless of whose jurisdiction it is, I would love you all to get together to fix those problems because we should not have this level of risk and death for our pedestrians.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I also just wanted to mention, so when my kid was taking driver's ed, the driver's ed location was at Alfredo's on Chinkapin Round Road. And so he had to ride his bike from Annapolis Neck Road down Forest Drive to Chinkapin to go to state mandated driver's ed class that every student before they can get a car has to go through driver's ed class. So again, going down Forest Drive on your bike, not a safe or easy
Yeah,
route.
you've got that one nice segment by the in front of the Safeway where there's a shared use path, but at either end, there's gaps in the network.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Janet, and thank you, Sean. I did just see that Kwaku just arrived, who is with the City Transportation Department. Kwaku, what we've been doing is just Andy gave a sort of a 2-minute overview of what is going on with the county and some of the changes and the programs that are in play. John talked about the bike area. What we've been talking about is how to create how so that we can work to make transportation less of a barrier. Right now, transportation is a barrier to access to education activities and to our schools for a lot of our children and also for their families. That's one thing I didn't bring up is that I forgot to bring up is it's not only about the kids getting to and from the activities, but it's also about, parents being able to get to a football game on a Friday night. It's also, or a basketball game on a Tuesday night, or
a teacher conference, or
a parent teacher conference, or,
a special
any
event.
PTA meeting, or, any of those types of things. So
Kids orchestra concert.
Kids orchestra concert. Right. Exactly. Plays, performances on a Saturday. That plays in a lot. We have a lot of events on a Saturday, and the transportations that are options that are available that at least get you near Annapolis High School during the week are much less available on the weekend. So, how do we make and what is available? And I know within the city we have, when a lot of times we talk about this right now, people bring up the Transit Go program, but that's obviously, just for specific routes within the city. And I know that there are, some federal laws and various things that prevent sort of changes on overall routes. But what I'd really like to do with this conversation is get to a state of how can we fix it and make it better, rather than a no, we can't do that. It is what it is, or it is what it's always been. Because I think, we've been talking about this for a long time, in a number of different ways, and we really owe it to our families, we owe it to our students, we owe it to the residents of the city and of the county, to make it better. I grew up in Bethesda. Well, first I grew up in a rural farm in Pennsylvania where there was no transportation for anything ever. And so that was hard. But then I moved to Bethesda and I went to high school in the city, in DC. And I had a single mom, and a younger sister, and my mom didn't have a lot of time to go to and from the 30 to 45 minute drive, even though it was only 8 miles, to and from my high school. And I relied on public transportation, and I was able to participate in a lot of activities because of public transportation. And I would like to see more students in Annapolis be able to rely on public transportation, whether it's participating in activities or just getting to school because they missed the bus, which I feel like there might be some people on this call right now who have been feeling that pain today. Because you can't just say, oh, I'm sorry, you missed the bus, hop on the city bus and get yourself to school, because you're going to miss, 2 periods by the time you get there, if you're lucky. So Kwaku, if you just want to introduce yourself and just give a brief overview of where the city is with its plans and its, process and everything, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, I would like to apologize for being late. I left the office very, very late, and I live on the Eastern Shore, so I just got home. So I do apologize for that. I'm a transportation planner for the city. I was in the planning and zoning department for a while, and I was asked to go to transportation to help with the transit system, in addition to my former role as a transportation planner. So I think, Ms. Norman, we have talked about this before some time ago.
Yep.
This is what you are currently doing. We are in the process of updating our transit development plan, which basically gives us a roadmap in terms of transit improvements. Currently, one of the proposals is to actually introduce a new route. It's a proposal. Our council needs to take a look at that. And the idea is to basically either from the mall or more from the Eastport area that will go directly to the high school, hitting all the major activity centers. So that is the plan. We have various options to that. We can do deviated fixed route, which means that the bus can deviate from its normal route to up to just a quarter of a mile, go to the neighborhood and pick up other students. In that mix, we also want to expand our micro-transit, which is now currently as a pilot. We operate it within the downtown areas during the weekdays, Monday to Friday, from about 5:30 to 7 p.m. And also on weekday evenings from 7 p.m. to about 11, which makes the service area very large for only 3 vehicles. So the idea is that we will position the microtransit in such a way that if you live in a neighborhood where, for instance, the new route doesn't come there, you can actually take the microtransit and transfer it to the fixed route that will take you to the high school and those areas. So that is what we have been looking at. I think I saw one panel who is also a member of the TDP advisory group, Ms. Pittman. I believe I did see her on this conference call. She's a member. We currently do have that proposal at our website. If you go to the transportation department website of the city page, I think there is a link to the TDP, and it will give you documents that we can review. We have Tech Memo 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe Tech Memo 4 actually contains some of these proposals. So it's all there. Most importantly, the thing goes to a city council to conduct a public hearing on that. So if you already have read, if you have any additional suggestions or opposition, you can just take note of that. When the opportunity comes, go to council, be able to convince them to make changes. So that is where we are at this particular point in time.
Any idea when that might go to council, Mr.
We are looking at late March, April, May, early April, because the consultant we have officially ends their work at the end of this month, which is a couple of days away. However, they will continue to work. So the advisory group will not meet officially, but they can actually send additional comments on that. I think it was last week or so when we had the last advisory group meeting, which was a very lively discussion of the various service alternatives that are under consideration. If you may recall, back in 2010 or 2011, we did make a major change to the system. Remember, most of the buses used to stop at Spar Road and then people would be forced to transfer. So this TDP actually was the route for us to make those changes. So we believe that with the proposed changes, especially a hybrid system, which has been my kind of my call to basically have a hybrid system where in the smaller communities where we have the grocery shop, the pharmacy store, you don't have to travel all the length of the city to get there. But the microtransit will be able to provide services. And if you want to go to, say, the mall, then it can connect you to a fixed route where you can transfer at no extra charge. For that. So take a look at the city website and the transportation TDP project documents. You find all this information there. And we are very much excited about the work the advisory group has been doing with the consultant.
Excellent. Excellent to hear that.
Great. Thank you so much, Kwaku. I wanted to share, just so when we're having this conversation, just so everyone's aware, this is information that was provided to us by the school system, just to get an idea of the number of walkers. So non-eligible bus riders is the, these are the, either they are walkers or they live out of the area or have not identified themselves as a walker, but could be a walker. Just so you can get an idea of, you know, how many kids we do have that walk to the schools, that ride buses to the schools. I will share this information towards the end as well, because I think it is important, you know, to know, you know, that we are talking, you know, each school is going to have its different thing. Like when you were talking about doing with the Tyler Heights, you know, Tyler Heights has 83 kids that ride, 331, 304 that are walkers. Whereas, you know, Germantown has 340 kids that ride buses and only 131 that walk, right? So, or 83, sorry, that walk. So I think, I don't know if this information is shared with your various organizations, so that when your various groups, when you're having these conversations and looking at
I think,
not only the adults,
sorry,
but also the students, you know, in the community in terms of biking and walking and everything else. So what was that?
I think it will be very useful for microtransit proposal for expansion of the microtransit, because in that what we are looking for is major activity centers where people do not have to use the fixed route to get there. So if you look at the proposals on the city website, it lists various activities and major centers like schools, shopping plaza, and things like that. So I will, if you wouldn't mind, send it to me. I will check with the consultant to make sure that these areas are covered, especially for the microtransit where they don't have to travel far from their destination to origin, from their origin to destination rather.
I will definitely share it with you. And Kwaku, one of the things that we were talking about before you get on, and I know you and I have had this conversation, you and Janet, but you know, there is, especially with the high school, you know, the how long it takes to get to and from. If you live in the city, if you live in Eastport, it's an hour and a half to get to the high school, and it's an hour and a half to get back from the high school. But especially right now because of the weather, but also right now because of the political climate. You know, things like microtransit, those types of things are going to become more and more important, because what we've been talking about in various different schools and is how to make sure that our families and our students are safe from front door to front door, right? And so and that's a big concern, and it's keeping kids out of school. So attendance is a huge priority in the school system, and attendance, whether they're not attending because it's too cold and they have to walk a mile and a half and they don't have an alternative transportation, or they have to walk a mile and a half and they're nervous about political, or you know, they're nervous about legal situations, or they miss the bus, or you know, whatever else the issue is, making sure that there are enough alternatives in a community where a lot of people do not have access to personal transportation is really important. So whatever the reason is behind it. Laura, go ahead.
Oops. Hi, I thank you so much. I two comments. One is that I work at Maryland Hall, and we've had a lot of conversations about getting kids to and from programs that we have a lot of opportunities for free or low cost programs for students after school, but they can't get to Maryland Hall, you know, which is again an area that's in Annapolis, and you would think that they should be able to get from, like, you know, Annapolis Middle is not that far away. But like some of the after school programs are really only, it's a middle school program, but it's really only open to the students at Bates, because we can't get the kids from Annapolis Middle to get all the way over to Maryland Hall for those programs. And similarly, there was a program on point at Pitt Moyer, and we couldn't get kids from Bates to Pitt Moyer after that. So these are things that are you know, not necessarily school bus transit, because these are programs that are not part of the school system, but they are places where lots of kids kind of need to be able to get in a timely fashion. You know, if school lets out at you know, whatever time, if school lets out at 3, what time does the middle school get out now? 3:40, 3:55?
9 p.m. No, they get out at 4.
The 3:50, yeah, 3:55 is dismissal. They need to be able to get, you know, they can't be on a bus for an hour to get from one place to the other. They need to be able to get there in a timely fashion. So those are other areas where we have commented that we need better transportation. With regard to the micro transit, are you talking about the TransiGo app for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is an app I have yet to be able to install it on my phone. I have an Android phone. I cannot install things. If I try to install it, it says, oh, first it was like sort of a dead link, or it was trying to get me to download a file. And my phone's like, no, we don't know where that's from. Now it points you to a website, but I still get the same error message. If I click on the website and try to download it, it says, no, you can't download this because it's not from a trusted source. When will it be available? On the page, it says, oh, available in the Google Play Store. And it has said that on the county website since July. It's still not available on the Google Play Store.
City, but yes.
Okay, so this was happening for Apple phone users, is available there. Google actually made changes to its policies. So not too long ago, we have to scramble to re-register and things like that. Early this week, I checked it and I did not find it at the Play Store. So I reached out to the IT company that we are working with to actually check into that. So I'm very much aware for Android phone users that still we have not been able to resolve that with Google account. Google is sometimes extremely difficult to deal with. It took us several weeks, even when after they changed the policies, to be able to set up a new account. And as of today, to my knowledge, it's not been up and running. So we are checking back with Google just to let you know what is happening there. hopefully by the end of this week, like Friday, tomorrow, I'll reach out to them and see if they have been able to resolve the issue with Google, so that the app will be available directly at the App Store to be able to use it. Yeah, that is the one you are talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean,
Well,
it's great if you have an iPhone, but I'm not buying my teenager an iPhone. So she's
yeah,
got Android and she's
yeah,
stuck with it.
yeah.
I have a
I will reach
question.
out to them tomorrow, and then if you can send me your email address, whatever that I find, just to give you an update of that, that would be very helpful. Yes,
Taco, if
and
you can
actually,
send it to me, then I can send it out to everybody. I can send it out through the Education Commission, and so we can all be aware
okay.
of it. Are there any age limits to riding the that part of the transit system? Like, are there any
The micro transit,
Yeah.
basically the ability to be able to ride alone. So typically, if you are, I don't recall the exact age, but if you are at the age where you need to be with your parents, then you can be that. We also need to remember that you may also remember that the city council passed a resolution, I think back in 2019, where all school children within the Annapolis area up to a K-12 actually ride the bus for free. And the same fare structure applies to the microtransit. So for instance, if you are a parent, you have a 6-year-old, 8-year-old, you think that you don't want that child to be, and I don't think we will even allow the person at such younger age, you have to be with an adult person. When you get on, only the parent actually pays the same fare of $2. The child rides for free. So that should not be a problem at all.
Great.
One more thing, as part of the TDP, we did actually had a conversation with the county school board for them to provide an input. So they are aware of what we are doing, and this issue actually came up. So we will send them a draft plan for them also to provide comment. There is another thing that you may want to be aware of. I do hear about the students needing public transportation to various places. Typically, we don't provide a dedicated service for that specific purpose. However, if we are doing transit network planning, like updating our transit network, knowing that the demand is there, we can integrate it into it so that it becomes part of the transit system. A classic case is City of Baltimore. Most of the City of Baltimore public school students actually take the MTA transit bus. With that in mind, MTA actually designed their route in such a way that it hits most of the residential areas and also almost all the public schools, so that you can actually get a transit system to go there without MTA providing a specialized transportation, which is where the law kicks in that you cannot provide a charter service in that sense. But given what you are talking about, the fact that we are doing the TDP update, all these could be taken into account to come out with a route system where at least it satisfies most of the travel demands for the students who go to our public school. We may not be able to catch everything, but we can improve the quality of the service and accessibility to these students to go to the various schools and various activity classes or various activities after school.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that.
Thank you.
And as we, sorry.
Janet, I wanted to let Rob talk because we haven't been able to get to Rob. So if we can let Rob talk, and then I'll come back to you.
Yep.
Please.
Hey, thanks, Jess. Let me see if I can get my video on. All right. So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I'm really glad that the commission is talking about this issue. And first, just a couple things as far as the app, the on-demand transit app. I agree with the board's concerns. We've raised it on the transportation committee before. Personally, I think it's a potential breach of contract because they did not give us a complete product if it doesn't work on both phone platforms. It's one of those things I've kind of just forgotten about, but I need to follow up with that. It's been a number of months and they still have not gotten it resolved. And on the transit hub, just quick, I think one option as far as the mall, if the mall's not willing to do it at first, one option might be to relax the parking requirements so that they can actually convert some parking spaces into some other amenities, or hike up their stormwater fees to give them an incentive to reduce their pavement. But but in any case, let me get to some of my thoughts, remarks that I've been writing down as I've been listening to people. And I do think, like, Chairwoman, I think you really framed it well to begin with. I think urban schools in particular are really different, and I think need to be treated differently by the school district. Forest Drive in particular, and with West Street not far behind, Forest Drive is the most dangerous road in the entire county. Yet we have a number of schools immediately on the corridor or very close to it. So we need to start seeing this as a public safety hazard. And similarly, I think we really need to start prioritizing taking action on it. I mean, we have blocked sidewalks, incomplete sidewalks like in front of the middle school that are like 1 to 2 feet wide. We have a lack of crosswalks, high-speed traffic, virtually no bike lanes or unsafe lanes as far as the ones we do have. We have inadequate transit coverage, high concentration of drive-throughs. So all of this really should be unacceptable for our urban school system. It is just, we are nowhere near having a functioning alternative for pedestrians because it has to be safe for people to use it. And that's for both pedestrians and cyclists. And there has to be a viable transit alternative, and which we don't have. We need to be straight up about that. And so, we can talk about safe routes to school as much as we want, and we've been talking about it for many years, but again, we just have not been putting those words to action. Mm-hmm. And so I see kind of two categories. The first one I wanted to focus on would be pedestrian cyclist mobility, and the second one would be transit alternatives. So as far as pedestrian cyclists, the areas around the schools, in my view, should be treated differently, maybe within a couple thousand feet, but especially, like I said, in these urban areas that are within walking distance or cycle distance. It's also, as you mentioned, more equitable. It makes sense fiscally because we always hear from the school district about the cost of the buses are going up, up, up. It also makes sense environmentally to get people out of the polluting automobiles. So what can we do about it? First thing is expand our infrastructure. Again, people aren't going to do it unless there's an alternative that's safe. And part of this is complete streets, adopting that standard so that we're looking at sidewalks, cycle lanes, whenever roads get improved. The state has adopted that for their roadways. That just took effect, I think, for the new year. The city will be adopting it shortly. I'm going to be introducing that soon. The county did adopt it many years ago, but I found out it was not ever properly implemented. They were supposed to work complete streets into their traffic design standards. They never did that. They were supposed to also say whenever there was major resurfacing projects that they had to work on these complete streets, they found a loophole, basically. Don't do that. We also need quick build options. And that's to put in quick build bike lanes. That's where you put up the barriers like you've seen on Tyler. And so again, I think a lot of this is just prioritizing these kind of things around the school districts. There's also infrastructure improvements, and that means removing barriers, like I mentioned, and installing proper ramps, looking at traffic circles, because that helps slow down traffic, but also it's much safer for pedestrians and cyclists. Lower the speed limit. It's been recommended for Forest Drive, yet it has not happened. I'm always surprised on what is it, Rundle on the Bay Road with Hillsmere and St. Anne's. Good that they put up a speed camera, but a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit on that road is ridiculous. It should be capped at 30 around school districts, schools, in my opinion. We need to start looking at no turns on red. We look at raised crosswalks, reduced lane widths. All of these things help to slow down traffic and make it safer for our kids. Road diets, that's something the city's looking at. I'm looking at in particular for my part of Bay Ridge Road. Snow removal, which has come up. They're clear there's really no plan for it. The city and the county have been scrambling to try to figure out how to do it. The city, I think, is making some progress. I think the county, I still have not heard back as far as what their policy is. So how do we do this? There's legislation, like I said, regarding safe streets, actually implementing that, adopting new standards, planning priorities, funding. We can identify projects and also identify the quick build and also quick funding mechanisms. And also divert some money from road resurfacing to actually go towards saving people's lives instead of just making sure we have a smooth drive and a quick drive. But a part of that, we need strong partnerships with the school, the county, and the city all working on these and contributing to these projects together. And then just a few quick things on transit. I think we need a better intertwined transportation system between the city and the county. It's not well coordinated at this point. I know they do have a study, I believe, that they're working on or perhaps nearly completed. I think we need to develop a plan for a clean electric transportation system, regional transportation system, and that can include bus, maybe electric bus, bus rapid transit, maybe something like streetcars, which we used to have 100 years ago in Annapolis, completely electric. And so, again, this means finding adequate funding and really prioritizing it, because right now our car system's heavily subsidized. And so that's basically it. I just wanted to touch on a number of those bigger issues. And if you have specific questions, happy to answer. And so thanks for the time.
Thank you so much, Rob. That was a lot. And you brought up a lot of good points. And I know, I'm sure there's going to be, one of the things when you were talking about some of the different issues. And one of the things we did in the year leading up right before COVID was we did a survey that we sent out to all the different schools through all the different PTAs and asked people to respond with what they saw as their major points in terms of walking, biking, or cars getting to, and buses getting to and from schools. And that maybe is something that I'd like to do again, so I can provide that information to you all from what we see on the, in the individuals, because a lot of times we're having these conversations, but we don't know that, for example, I can give a small example in Eastport, they redid the crosswalk on 6th Street, putting it on the left side of Bay Ridge Avenue, but all of the students that walk down that street walk down the right side of Bay Ridge Avenue. So now they have to cross 2 crosswalks in a corner and a square, which is really dangerous and really hard for the crossing guard. And when there's no crossing guard, even more dangerous. But it's because when it was done without looking at where people come from, right? So you have all of the residents come from the right side of Bay Ridge Avenue. So those types of things, right? There's little things that you don't know about until you're the person walking in those shoes down the thing. And so I think those are a lot of good things. I know we're going to have questions. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, I just want to put a plug in at some point, John and the city and the county working together, which again, that's the whole point, is to let's pop those bubbles and get everyone here. You're here, Lisa's here. What kind of conversations can we have about what's going forward that affects this whole discussion? We finally got Forest Drive cleared off, and it had to do a lot with having conversations with you and Lisa and Brooks and getting it working. But also, once we get people out there walking and riding bikes, and for a lot of these kids, they don't have the right equipment, whether it's the right bikes or the right helmets, and that's, in some cases a further conversation, but in some cases also a now conversation. We want to get people riding, they have to be able to actually ride safely. So, just put that out there as well. So, Kwaku, go ahead.
To Alderman Savage, good to see you again after a long while. Your ideas, since you talk about it, it involves various aspects to improve mobility and accessibility to and around our educational institutions. Is there anywhere where we have documented this? Not necessarily to call for another study or our plan, but as we move forward, some of these ideas, I think it would be better to document them and see how we can sort them and prioritize them and determine the source of funding so that we'll be able to move forward with that. I know planning and zoning may be doing something, transportation may be doing something, the school board may be doing something. But if we can document these ideas, not necessarily another study, that will be very, very helpful so that we can sort them out. We can look at the pros and cons, what kind of resources we need, right of ways, where to go, what kind of funding we need, so that you have a concrete template to help us move towards the goal of what I call improving mobility and accessibility to and around our public educational facilities or institutions. So that would be very interesting. I know that you were in Europe, where you saw a much improved public transportation system of all modes, walking, biking, buses, and of course, the usual personal vehicles. So that would be something good for the commission to look into that, so that we can take it and say, okay, this is so important. How do we tackle that? So with the documentation, it serves as a roadmap for us to move forward with that. And with elected officials like Alderman Savage on board, if it requires legislation or asking for council's support, I think he can take a lead on that.
And I am
So
more
that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm more than happy for that to sit here within the I mean, that's what we're here for, right? So to try to create these things. So if it looks like having a committee within the Education Commission, not just of commissioners, but everybody else involved, I am all about that. If I have a fifth grader, if he can get easily to and from school by the time he's in high school, I will be a very happy person because I have a senior and I've been working on this since he was in first grade. So, all right. Does anyone, who else? Hi, Joanna, Dr. Tobin, thank you so much for joining us. Janet, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, while we have the decision makers, I don't know if Andy is still on the line here. So how do we go about getting those things actually fixed? I need to submit a formal request from the commission for the crossing at Quiet Waters Park for the new townhouse development to Hillsmere? How do we, the crossing at Spa Creek for Bates students? How we have city county folks here, and if there's the state one on West Street, how do we get that into motion as a needed fix?
That's a question that I've had as well, because I asked that about there's an issue with the left turn lane as you're going out of Forest Drive, but you want to go to Annapolis Middle. Well, the whole Spa Road Forest Drive intersection there for anyone who is trying to go to Annapolis Middle, no matter which direction you're coming from.
Terribly dangerous.
Maybe if you're coming from Aristide Allen, it's okay, but it's really dangerous for walkers and drivers. But because of that intersection, I think involves 3 different jurisdictions. So that's confusing. So is there, I know the city has the report it, but if it goes into report it, it sometimes seems to go into a black hole. Does the county have is there a way that we could create something that, or is it that we do the survey that we did 6 years ago and we give that to all of you and you all can take it down? Or I'm not sure, right? Is there some way we can do that?
Well, my question is which as a 33-year federal bureaucrat, I know how to stay on a case of someone, but who are the decision makers that will change these particular intersections that are noted problems?
Well, I'll go based upon my own experience because I'm an advocate, just like all of you. for a signalized crossing on a county road. Nestor Flores, who many of you probably know. I would go straight to Nestor. He's the guy.
Signalized, that's the traffic light at like Spa and thing, not the one, not the
Right, or, well,
signalized
let's see, I
pedestrian.
think you were suggesting at Hillsmere, possibility of a
Yes.
flashing cross.
That's
If
called.
if that's a county road, I'm not sure where the city-county
I think
line
you
is.
should back up a little bit, because for both cases, and yes, that's a county road, county responsibility, but for either project, even if you go to Nestor, it's going to take time. And the problem is we need to change our systems. So, for example, one of the things I'm pushing for in the city, and you know, it's great, we allocated $1 million for the first time dedicated toward cycling and pedestrian improvements, separate from the road resurfacing. But the problem is it's still bogged down through all the permitting and design review. And so that's where you need to get, what I want to do is copy the system we have for stormwater, which is basically a quick, you don't need permits. You get a blanket permit to do quick, easy improvements. Maybe you review it in-house, yes, with some of the cities or the county's engineers, but that it gives it so, then you don't have to wait months and years to get something done. So that's one process we need to fix. But the other thing is, if it's a bigger project, then you have to go into get a project into the CIP, capital improvement project budget. And that's what we do in the city. But again, that takes time, because then they have to go through this whole process. So we really need to get that sped up. And so as far as the Spa Road one,
each individual flashing crosswalk thing would be an individual project that they need to permit and get individually approved?
Typically, yeah. I mean, I had a situation in the city. I was trying to get a crosswalk, and following the process, they said, oh, we need to do, you know, traffic studies to see if it's warranted as far as density. And that came up negative. And I said, well, I know what my constituents want. So I just had to force it into the budget via an amendment and make it into a project, because the engineering studying ended up not panning out. So it's like, you just have to do it. If we're really serious about this, we do it for environmental stormwater for smaller projects.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. If you're talking about a crosswalk, you don't need to go permitting for months and months. If you're talking about reconstructing a road, yeah, sure, you do the engineering, but
it's like having a nationwide permit for nationwide wetlands permit for a crosswalk. Like they should be generalized permit that rolls through.
Yeah. And again, I think the funding should be prioritized around these school areas, because that's where it's most critical. And we just don't have those priorities, policies set up yet. We're starting to do it in the city, but it's you know, yeah. I'll be introducing a big one later this year, so I'll be happy to provide it to the commission.
I will say that, especially now that I see Joanna Tobin has joined, nice to see you. I would love for AACPS to have a Safe Routes to School coordinator, somebody who works internally to advocate on behalf of the school system for these things, to secure the grants, like the bike safety training program that's happening in a handful of elementary schools now. Office of Transportation went and got the grant and is funding. I'd love to see AACPS grab hold of that, go get the grants, implement programs to promote safe biking and walking, and advocate for the safe routes to make it safer for kids. So I'll just put that with you as we're in budget season.
I think that's a great question. Joanna, can you, the transportation department at AACPS, is that specifically buses? Do they have anything to do with, I mean, other than determining who is and who is not a bus rider, do they have anything to do with safe routes or biking or walking or anything else to school? Or are they just buses?
If you're talking about the City of Annapolis Transportation Department, basically the focus is on transit and parking and planning. We don't really deal with that, but we do actually work with Public Works Planning and Zoning, County Office of Transportation, and of course, the County Office of Traffic Engineering on safe route to schools and things like that. But we don't have direct, I would say, authority over those things.
Over those
So
things. Okay.
we
I
don't
was
we don't do the facilities improvement, but we can recommend that. So
okay. I was asking for ACPS, but that's good to know for the city. And then after Joanna answers, I will ask Andy as well for the county. That would be really helpful.
So I will say that essentially right now, as you know, pretty much anything to do with transportation, whether it's walking, anything gets sent to the transportation department. I am not sure. I mean, I like the suggestion about sort of some place where somebody is specifically focused on safe routes to school, not just whether or not they're buses or walkers. And it's always helpful to me if folks send an email with their suggestions, because I'd love to have that written so that I can share that out. It's probably, I don't really, we're getting close to our own budget vote, so that's not something I can probably work on getting in the budget this year, but I might be able to work on it for next year. So send me that, and I'm happy to talk further about it and see where we can go, because for all the reasons, I've obviously, apologies for getting on late, technical problems tonight. And so I'm on my phone, my apologies. You know, this is what everybody learns very quickly is there are so many players in every decision, and schools are one of them. And so, you know, we want to make sure we're involved and working with whoever we can work with to get these things done. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Very much. And then Andy, if you just want to sort of same thing for the county, how that works, that would be helpful, I think, for all of us to know.
Yeah, and can you clarify, is this for in regards to school buses, or what was the?
Just in general, like does the transportation department in the county deal with all forms of transportation, both transit and also walking and biking and right, all of the different forms of transportation by residents?
The short answer is yes. Basically everything. It's kind of ironic. People think office of transportation, they think, oh, roads, road planning, road construction, and single passenger vehicles. We do everything except that. So fixed route, call and ride, paratransit, dialysis for patients who don't have a car, all of that stuff, that was kind of rolled into our office. Yes, pedestrians, cyclists, shared use pass. We work with John on a weekly basis, as I'm sure he can attest. Yeah, so we deal with all of that.
I'll piggyback on that a little bit. The county transportation is an office of planning. So they do planning for all modes, and they do operations for transit. But if we want to get a side path built alongside a road, Public Works is the one that's going to actually build it. Office of Transportation can advocate for getting that into the CIP, but it's Public Works that's going to build it. If we want to get a trail extension on a major trail, that's Rec and Parks. And by the way, we have reps from each of these departments at the Bike Commission. So it's somewhat splintered. Office of Transportation has a full-time bike pedestrian planner, Tanya Asman, who some of you may know, a position we advocated for and got successfully filled 5 years ago or so. The city of Annapolis now has Will Rowell is moved over to the Office of Transportation. I'm sure you all know Will, and he is advocating there for bike ped. Eric Lashinsky has been our go-to guy for bike pedestrian work, have done a great job securing grants, both state and federal grants and federal earmarks for bike pedestrian infrastructure. And of course, Brian Callahan in the mayor's office. So it's, yeah, they're go-to people for planning, but to actually get things into the budget through design, through construction, there are other departments that play a big role in that.
And
Right.
can I just piggyback onto what John said now? Yeah, so John put it very well that we're planning. We're not actually in the business of building, but we're a very young department. We were only created in 2018, and we're still a very small department. Like John said, we just got the bike ped planner added, and that's the first official role, first person in that official role for the county. We can recommend that a new road has a shared use path built into its right of way. We can recommend that, you know, a new development has proper sidewalks and it's called frontage, you know, proper pedestrian and cyclist access. But at the end of the day, that's all that really is. Sometimes it's just recommendations. It's what other departments are willing to do. It's who has the sway to say what gets done and what doesn't, and where the money goes and what gets prioritized. So yeah, there's a lot of players in this game. We do the planning, but that doesn't mean our plans get followed through on all the time.
Well, and can I reiterate that the county's complete street policy requires that any kind of significant road work, reconstruction, that you have to look at those kind of issues. So it's not just recommendation. These things are already required, but again, it's that the policy has not been implemented by the county. Just like the state, whenever there's work done on a state road now, they have to look at those things. And so, yeah, there needs to be some fire behind somebody in the school district and the county to really prioritize, get this stuff done. And I'm just not seeing it yet, frankly.
Mhm.
I will add that from a legislative standpoint, at the county, there are a variety of bills that are sort of in the hopper focused on multimodal transportation. I'll start with adequate public facilities transportation is strictly about roads and strictly about capacity and zero about safety and zero about the alternate modes. There's been a work group for 4 years plus to develop a multimodal APF ordinance that will address all modes, that will bring safety in, but not yet been brought to council. Road frontage came to council recently, hastily, sort of a surprise for many, including the council, and flopped. It needs a do-over. Scenic and historic roads, actually, that ordinance actually stands in the way of safe biking and walking. That needs a complete renovation. And so parking regulations, the city has dealt with that some. The county really needs to renovate its parking requirements, which induce more driving and get in the way of safe biking, walking, and transit. So yeah, I'll make a plea here for support. And I know Councilwoman Rodvian is on board with all of this, but there's a lot of code renovation needs to happen at the county to make all of this happen. Even complete streets, which Rob mentioned. A policy was passed. Chris Trumbauer, when he was on the council, got a resolution passed for complete streets. We have a policy. It's never been put in code.
Passed, John.
Yeah,
John, an entire plan was passed. Complete Streets plan.
But it's not. It's still not in code.
Look at everything. Yeah, you're right. But when we adopt these plans and spend money on them and adopt them, we hope that they get implemented, right?
I will say that when the county does repaving now, they have a process for looking at the roadway and determining whether in between the existing curb lines, bike lanes can be added. And they've added probably a dozen, or in fact, Hillsmere Drive was one of the very first. When that got repaved, they striped Benfield Road and Severna Park bike lanes. So they have added about a dozen or so, but only within the roadway. And a bike lane is not going to work for kids. A bike lane is just modestly improved safety for adults who ride, but a bike lane is not going to work for kids. A separated lane, protected lane, and there's only 2 in the county. One of them's on Jennifer Road near the hospital. where it's, you have the flex post and good separation from the travel lanes. That can work, but again, we only have 2 in the county so far.
Great, thank you. Odessa, it's 7:45, so we want to wrap up any questions because I want Joanna to be able to give an update, and I'm sure there are some questions for her. But I'm going to send an email out after this meeting to try to get everybody's, get everybody's contact information and go through some of these things and really start. I really want this conversation to continue because it's really important. So, Odessa, do you want to ask?
Well,
Odessa?
I mean, on the point about safety, has the traffic increased in Annapolis? There's so much traffic on the roads now, and you're talking about bike lanes and on Hilltop Lane. I don't know what all that stuff is on Hilltop Lane. Those spikes in the road.
They're not spikes.
Well, what are they? I don't know what they're called.
All of the traffic calming on Hilltop Lane. Yeah.
And has the traffic increased in Annapolis over the last years, the last 3 or 4 years?
Yeah,
Anybody?
I mean, the traffic has increased, and I mean that's why we need to look at these alternatives, is to give people some amount of ability to break free from relying 100% on the car. So yeah, that's why we need better sidewalks, actual bike paths, and actual buses that'll have really efficient routes, right?
Right. There are dedicated bikers and walkers, but for the majority of people, it has to be easy to do it in order to do it, right? That's how it works. Okay. Are there any final remarks or questions before we move on to Dr. Tobin? Thank you so much to everyone who's here and spent so much time on talking about this. I think we've talked about a lot of different subjects. I'm going to try to distill it. If there's anybody on the commission that wants to sort of or work with me on the, sort of a side word that's missing from my head right now, about this. And
I would, Jess.
Conversation. Okay, great. Thanks, Janet. Have the side conversation because I do think it's really important. I think it's important to have Rob and Lisa and, Andy and Kwaku and John all in the same conversation and having this conversation
with us.
I think it's really important. So thank you all for being here. Are there any last questions? Lisa, go for it.
Hey, I just wanted to add, if we continue this conversation, it would probably be really helpful to see if we could get someone from the county executive's office. Because, a lot of the things that we're talking about here amount to budget items. And if they're not in the budget, it can be very difficult for the council to get them in the budget. We have the power to restore things in the Board of Education budget, but our power outside of that is generally to cut. So the only way that we can get things in the budget is if the county executive puts them there, or if we beg and get them in a supplemental budget, which sometimes we can successfully do. That is a very narrow, it's not going to get a whole lot accomplished. So, I would just suggest that to have a more meaningful conversation to get the county executive here. And I don't know if, honestly, a lot of the roads that we deal with are state roads as well. So I don't know what the odds are of getting someone. We have like the District 5 is our state district, or at least for the part of, for just District 5 state for the roads, District 6 for the council. I don't know what the odds are of getting a state person in because they're part of the equation as well.
Great. Good idea, Lisa.
Thank you all very much. You are welcome to stay, but you don't have to stay. I'm sure everyone has things to do on your Wednesday night. So for Andy and John and Kwaku and Rob and Lisa, if you want to stay, I'm sure we're going to talk about things that you're going to want to hear about as well. So thank you all very, very much.
I can stay for a few minutes. That's fine.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Tobin.
Oh. Sorry, at the perfect end to the day was my technology not working. But anyway, I hope everyone is well.
You missed, everybody else came on with technology issues as well. So you're not alone in that tonight. So
Okay, good. I mean, not good, but so I don't know specifically, obviously there are questions and I know we're running out of time here. Obviously, top of mind for most people. And by the way, thank you for having the conversation about transportation. I'm sorry I wasn't able to sit in on more of it. But obviously, top of mind for most people are issues around handling immigration issues and policies around schools. And then the fact that we had the initial sort of informational session on redistricting, which is the southern half of the county and will include the Annapolis cluster. Obviously, Dr. Bedell has put out guidance that everybody who's getting updates from ASCPS, families, et cetera, should have received regarding the protocols should ICE show up at a school. And we're in lockstep with what sort of our state oversight, the Maryland State Department of Education is giving us guidance. And essentially, our goal is to ensure children are safe in their schools and know that they're safe in their schools. And people can't just show up and come into schools. And so, that continues to be the position, very similar to the guidance the state attorney general put out for law enforcement, that, they are not forced to obey federal law enforcement, that they abide by their state responsibilities. And similarly, at schools, we have obligations to our students, and that's what we continue to abide by. So, of course, I'm happy to take any questions I can. Fortunately, the order that had been issued freezing so many federal funds has been rescinded, so we don't have to continue to have that conversation for the time being, at least.
Dr. Tobin, though, right before I got on, I saw a post made by the president's White House press secretary that the order was not rescinded, just the OMB notice about the order.
That's true.
Yeah. So again,
I don't know what that means.
Here we are. Moment to moment, I don't think many of us know for sure. I mean, for whatever, it's been stayed by a judge until Monday. And I think a lot,
But Dr. Tobin, hi, this is Odessa. I got a phone call today that ICE was over at Annapolis High School. Did y'all hear that rumor?
That was an unfortunate mistake that law enforcement, I can tell you for sure it was not the city and it was not the county, decided to have a drill, an aquatic drill, and that was at the swim center, which was near, obviously, right next to Annapolis High. So no, it was not ICE. But of course, understandably, people are terrified, and the assumption was that it was.
While we were on the meeting, I got a message that the state of Maryland bomb squad conducted a scheduled training at the Annapolis Olympic Swim Center today.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that information was not shared prior to it happening.
Right, with the principal or with the family of the community of families or anyone else. Like, I mean, when you have a fire drill practice, they share that in advance. We're gonna have a safety drill. It's often shared in advance. So that was a big cluster.
Well, I can assure you that I'm sure appropriate conversations are being had. I have my thoughts as to why such a thing was done, but you know,
Well, I called the county executive's office and filed a request to know exactly who approved that exercise at the Riva pool and why it could not have been done at a different pool system and a different thing. Anyway, so
Yes.
I will report back what that response is.
That would be good information. And I'm sure, as is often the case, many things are occurring, many conversations are occurring. We want to, and I said this last night on a PTA meeting, we are trying, all of us, and I mean all of us, not just ACPS and the Board of Education, but people in many different elected positions, are trying to respond as quickly and appropriately as we can to what is actually happening and what knowledge we actually have, and get the answers where we need them without doing something that will needlessly call attention to our students and not serve them well. And so there are many considerations when you are navigating these kinds of waters, so to speak. And we continue to do that. But Ms. Odessa, yes, that was what was happening, and it is very unfortunate, but it was something to add to the day. But everyone's okay. It was not an actual
Okay.
event. So yeah, people were very scared and upset, but fortunately nothing serious was going on. So
That's good. That's good.
Yes.
So I hope the students how are they doing? I mean, the kids, in classes and things.
Probably freaked out.
It's very hard.
Mhm.
It is very, very hard. Children are scared. Teachers, educators, and admin are under a huge amount of stress right now.
Right.
I think it's really rough on people. And so much of what's being put out is, I believe, intentionally very broad. And so, the statements are very broad. So they open up all sorts of possibilities. Nobody really knows what's happening, what exactly is going to happen. And, that just adds to an environment that's very difficult. And, it's children who themselves are potentially directly impacted, are frightened for what will happen to their families. And then other children who are their friends, who are frightened what will happen to their friends. And, that's a terrible thing to have happen. Our children go through enough. They don't need this. But I think all the more reason, as best we can, that the adults continue to proceed thoughtfully and carefully. And, I often think of a statement that President Obama always made to his staff, which was, don't react, respond. And that is the idea that you don't just react to what's happening. You try to think through it as best you can and respond to what's actually going on. And I think the best we can do right now, certainly those of us who are in various positions having to make some of these determinations, is to be as careful and thoughtful as we can. But I also think that's helpful to young people when the adults around them are trying to proceed that way.
Right.
So, that's what we're all really trying to do, and basically just ensure that all our students are safe at school. That's our first consideration.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. And I will share some of the resources in the call that we discussed about. One thing I did want to bring up about the redistricting, Joanna, is I know we talked about a little bit at the PTA meeting last night, but I went through it again, and the numbers for the Eastport Terrace Harbor House situation are definitely wrong. So the things that are coming out Saturday, it's been a very long day.
Yes. I'm amazed I'm getting any words out. Yeah.
That are coming out on Saturday are going to be based on incorrect information. And so to me, it seems like, and I went on today and I started to write an email about this, copying you and a few other people, and 17 other phone calls regarding the situation in Annapolis High School later. It hasn't gone out yet, but I feel like if what is the word that's coming out on Saturday? The scenarios
that are going to be.
The scenarios that are coming out are going to be based on incorrect information and fairly substantial incorrect information, right? The renovation at Harbor House and Eastport Terrace is supposed to add up to 300, I think, new units, either there or there and somewhere else in the city, which is going to affect a different school. But 300's a lot, right? That's a lot of students, and that's a lot of students in a mixed use, low income community, which has a different rate of ratio of kids, which is another conversation that needs to be had, because we're still not using the right ratio for our housing that puts more children. We're putting the same ratio for our apartment building at Harbor House as we are at, a building at Shearwater, which has 0 children living in it, right? Maybe it works itself out, but I don't think, based on my experience in the school system. But is there a way we can ask them to revisit those scenarios prior?
The first thing I always do in those situations, because this is, as I mentioned last night, when these scenarios come out, now we start asking those questions. And the first question is, okay, walk me through how you came up with these numbers. And once we do that, then we go back and we say, okay, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And, start digging through it. And that's how I do it because first you have to ask the person who's presenting it to you, okay, where did you come up with this? And then we'll work our way through it. But that is why this is a long process.
Okay.
We have until May something, I can't remember what it is, that these scenarios are up. And then after that, there's another couple of months before the superintendent gives his recommendation. And then after that, you've got from July to November until the board actually takes a vote.
Okay, so if they're working with incorrect numbers for these scenarios, will they make a change to them before May, or are these the scenarios that are up? And
we'll talk about, that's what the conversation will be, because if in that inquiry process, it turns out that the numbers are wildly off and we know, where they're coming from and it's not adding up, then we will look at what is the process for redoing the numbers so we get the correct trajectory on these things. But, that's going to be the process that we go through. And they have some source on these numbers. I don't know exactly. I know they're working with the planning departments. I know all of that, but we have to sort of dig into the specifics. And as Dana Schalheim says, you kind of talk to them, say, okay, break it down for me like I'm a 4-year-old, just take me through it and explain exactly how we got here. And, what is being taken into account, what is not being taken into account, why some things are being, I asked a question in the workshop also about using previous enrollment as a predictor. And there's I think a lot of potential issues with that, because, if we've got families, if our schools keep going in the direction many of them are going in, and I hope all of them will be going in, which is up and doing better, one would presume that more people will be sending their kids to Annapolis cluster schools. So we don't want to lock ourselves out, so to speak, in our projections. So these are a number of conversations that we're going to have. So, what then happens if we figure out the numbers have to be changed is the next step, and we will address that when we get there. So,
okay.
All right.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Dr. Twin?
I do.
Okay.
Dr. Tobin, I just wanted to ask if you are going to be at the District 6. I know you have a ton of meetings.
Yes.
The Tuesday night, Annapolis High District 6 begathon to the county executive.
Yes.
Which I think we all have to get the word out much more effectively. You know, I've been one of the couple parents that show up at that, and there's 45 police and 25 pickleball players, you know.
Right.
But like the Library Advocacy Foundation has sent an email to all their mailing list that I was on about get to this meeting and advocate for the library. Like we have to be more effective in reaching our community to say, please come on Tuesday, February 4th.
I mean, everywhere I can ask people, I do. I hope that PTSA's put out the word. I hope, you know, I mean, all the usual sort of.
They haven't. I haven't seen it yet, but.
Yeah, because I've been passing that information along wherever I can. So, but yes, I will be there. Last year it was scheduled on a night where we actually had a board meeting, so I couldn't be there, but this year it does not conflict. So, I will be there, and, you know, it's going to be a very tough budget year, and, you know, we're going to have some I suspect we're going to have some amendments to increase some of the superintendent's ask in certain areas, because, you know, our job, and it's actually written in law and in statute, our job is to advocate for what the system needs. And so we will be doing that. And, you know, it's, as I always say, I represent overwhelmingly a group of people who can't vote, children. And so it's up to those of us who are the adults to advocate for them. So when they do advocate for themselves, they often do a very good job, but they can't do it all. So.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My one feedback from everything that happened today, I know you've already probably seen my email, but is communication, right? It took 2.5 hours about for communication from the school to go out to the community after the first sort of photos started spreading. I worked really hard to try to get the right information so I could share that on all of the various platforms that I'm involved with and make sure that the right information, the factual information was going out. Because I think it's really important to share factual information, whether it's something like that or whether it's a car accident shutting down Forest Drive or whatever else is happening, right? It's important. I would just really like to urge the school system to move quicker. 2.5 hours is a very long time when you think that your child might be in danger or that your family might be in danger. And
I do understand that. I'm also aware that in this particular case, which points to the issue itself, it was not easy to track down the information. It was not easy to actually figure out who exactly was or was not there. And again, just like you, the system does not want to give out incorrect information, right? I mean, that could be even worse.
Right.
And so this was a particularly difficult task, which it should not have been. It should not have been, but it was.
Right. And because it's a game of telephone, right? Then it was like, then people are, oh, well, now they're at AMS or now they're at all the different schools. And so even if there's something, you know, I know we don't want to put out, but even if it was something like, we know that there are concerns, please let's reiterate the information that Dr. Bedell put out, right? Because I feel like that information, I keep posting, I have, you know, made that PDF into pictures and I have posted it and sent it 87,000 times because
Yeah.
That information is really important for everybody, right? For everybody, regardless of whether we're talking about immigration or you're talking about a student who
Yeah.
did something illegal, right? Like, I mean, it's important to know how the school system handles people coming into their building
Yeah.
looking, right?
Well, and that's a fair point. And, you know, I think, I mean, and I will say, and this is from my perspective, and again, this is just, I think it's something everybody's aware of. There's a whole lot going on right now. And everybody's trying to like track everything that needs to be tracked, but it is, it's an adventure every day. So,
So the one question that I had last night, I'm not sure with everything today, whether you were able to get the answer to, and I know everything's because now things are maybe on hold, maybe they're not, but is the question of if there is a funding hold and if that funding hold does affect school lunches, school breakfasts, the funding that goes to the schools, particularly in the meals, right? I mean, obviously, I'm also concerned about how it's going to affect Title I teachers and all of those types of things. But in the very immediate sense of meals, does the school system have a plan yet, or are they working on a plan yet for what happens?
So I haven't had an opportunity to have a specific conversation about this, but I will tell you our general way of operating in these situations is, you know, our first priority is making sure that our students have what they need, and food is clearly a critical part of that. So I think this is more of a situation where if something happened that jeopardized that funding, I mean, I won't get it. I mean, there's some funds, we have a bit of a fund balance and so that you can pull from initially, but our first priority would be to care for the students in our care and then figure out the back end of the funding, right?
And I just want to jump in to say that I am committed to advocating for that on the council too. If the federal government leaves us hanging, I believe it is important for for state and local governments to help pick up the slack, and our budget timing will allow us to have hopefully have a clear idea of what is and is not coming down the pike from the federal government. So I'm prepared to push hard to make sure that we don't leave gaps with things like school lunches, with things like, blueprints, not
but
not
whatever
a federal thing, but
even
special
transportation,
education
right?
could
Some
be
of our Title I transportation or our,
absolutely,
special education transportation, those things.
And I know that our council chair has reached out specifically to AACPS to ask for what our our exposure is to federal dollars, to try and figure out, okay, what gaps might be coming down the pike from AACPS. And I believe we haven't heard back yet, but I am sure that somebody is working to answer that question, because if it means we're going to try and help pick the slack, that they would absolutely put us in a position to do that.
I know the analysis is happening, and it takes a little bit to do the analysis because obviously this is a big complex system and figuring out exactly what would be immediately impacted. But yes, that is exactly the kind of work I know we're all going to be doing together to make sure that things, the critical things that have to keep going. And, I'm personally very grateful to have a partner in this district like Councilwoman Rodvian and her colleagues as well. I know that they care deeply about our students, and just as we do, and we're all gonna get together and figure this out, and that's just how it's going to be. So I think we're all committed to that, and as I said, it's unfortunate that there are not a lot of specific answers we have right now, but we do have a commitment to, keeping our students and our communities safe and secure. So that's what we'll keep doing.
Great. Thank you both so much It is very much appreciated to have people so dedicated to our students' safety. So thank you. And well-being, not just academically, but whole student. So thank you very much. I do want to just share, we have a couple quick things to share. I'll just pull up this PowerPoint really quickly so we can just run through it. Want to make sure that we get this information in, and then we will, this has been a long meeting, but I think a really important meeting. So thank you to everyone. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at Bates, there is the middle school athletics community night, where they're going to talk about spring soccer, girls and boys. They're going to talk about middle school athletics in general. So spring soccer is going to be the first sport for the middle school athletics program. I sent some of this information out prior to can you guys see that full screen when I just went to full screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. In the last thing, I will send it out again, but if you want to learn about the middle school athletics program, I actually cannot be there because I will be at a high school athletics program. So if there's somebody that's willing to raise their hand to make sure that they attend and can report back to us, I would really appreciate it, because I'm really trying to figure out how to simultaneously host the swim team dinner and be at the middle school community night at Bates, which I cannot do. And I don't think the swim team wants to go to dinner at Bates. So
do you have any
able to
idea?
attend,
Do you have any idea if it's co-ed soccer team or separate boys and girls middle school?
I think it's separate. I think it's separate boys and girls, but if you're willing to attend tomorrow night, you can find out and let us know.
Nope, I'm done with middle school. Thanks.
No. But as your role on the commission, just to attend and, give us back information, it would be very helpful. But if someone's available to attend, I would be very much appreciative. So let me know. On March 13th, we have Career Day coming up at Annapolis Middle School. This is on our on the Facebook page for the PTSA. It's on the Facebook page for the Community Schools Program. We really would love to have career guest speakers come and talk about your career paths of all sorts. So please come speak to our students. Let them know. The middle schools are really trying to focus on getting kids thinking about their futures in middle school rather than just waiting till high school. And this is a really great, you get so many really interested kids. So please, if you're willing to come and speak about your career, even if it's a career you retired from a long time ago, please consider coming, and please share this information with everyone.
Jump in quickly and just let everybody know that this middle school career counseling initiative is a Blueprint for Maryland's Future initiative. It is funded with Blueprint money, and ACPS is now required to have these counselors at middle school and work with workforce development to have this counseling. So I happen to think it's great to get middle schoolers thinking about this, but it's also one of the benefits of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. So I just wanted to pop that in there.
It really is. And it's great. I mean, I have a middle schooler, and I can tell you it's been really great there. We have them not only on the career days, but we've had different career people at all the different things. So like different events and different things. Speaking of that, just really quickly, sidebar, as many of you probably saw, community schools are on the pausing block, possibly, for Governor Moore. I personally believe that that's a really not great plan. I think if we need to make cuts, we can make them otherwhere. I think my Eastport Elementary and Annapolis Middle are both community schools. I would really like Annapolis High School to be a community school. The community schools programs, and I've seen what it's done at Tyler Heights, I've seen what it's done at other schools. The community schools programs provide so much to our schools, particularly in the Annapolis cluster, where you have these legacy communities and these legacy schools, and they allow for people for connection and connection and all the things that we talk about here.
Could not agree more. I'd love to pay more taxes if that's the alternative.
Please, please, I will pay more taxes.
Yes.
But you can go on to I will send out the link when I send out my email. which will probably be tomorrow, not tonight. Just it's been a long day. But you can go on the link and you can email Governor Moore directly and share your opinion. So please do, please, if you agree and you support the community schools, it is a phenomenal. I will give you my own personal thing. Annapolis Middle does Dragon Nights. They're usually on Friday nights. I have 100 children, all of whom have things on Friday nights, usually sports events that I need to be at. I was able to make a Dragon Night with my middle schooler, and we played some games, which was really fun. Then I realized I was supposed to be in the adult room, not the kids' room playing games. But then I went into the adult room and it was a vision board night. And I was like, oh, I make a vision board because I'm a dork. Whatever. It was so great. It was so great to make the vision board. All the kids got new winter coats. All the kids got to play games. They learned new rules at Uno. I mean, it's these, and I connected with new parents and they connected with new kids. And this one kid did this absolutely amazing juggling demonstration, just sort of off the cuff. He was like, oh, by the way, I brought my juggling balls and I will show you all these things. That is what school is supposed to be. School is supposed to be community. And that whole thing is funded and supported by the community schools. And it is really important to all of our students. So please support that. That's up to
And
you.
if I can add, it's not just emailing the governor, it's emailing your state representatives. So Delegate Dana Jones, Senator Shanika Henson, and I guess we'll know on Monday who the other delegate is. But please let them know.
Agreed.
Yeah. Dr. Tobin, can I ask a question about what's being curbed? So what I read was that they did not, the enforcement that was being paused, or the funding that was being paused, was that 40% of the teacher's day was mandated to be in collaborative planning.
That's separate. That is also being proposed to be paused, but that's different.
Okay. So in what world do any of our schools have 40% of the day in collaborative?
None of them do. That's the point. Blueprint wants us to get there. And what the governor has
every
said,
teacher in every position?
essentially, yes, because that is how high functioning, I mean, and this is a longer conversation we can have, but the top performing school systems in the world work that way.
Okay. Okay, so they're two separate. I didn't know how.
Two separate. So let me say the language is a little different. When we're talking about the 60%, 40%, the language is pause. And what the governor is proposing is that be paused for 4 years, I believe.
Right.
The community schools funding, the proposal is that will be frozen. So it will stay where it is, not go up. But that will result in a reduction of services, right? Because
it's not going up with salary increases and stuff.
It also means that we have schools that are just on the verge of crossing the threshold that would make them into community schools, and they will not become community schools while that freeze happens.
Okay.
And again, that is proposed, I think, for 2 years or 3 years.
Okay.
But I think I think the pause on community schools, I mean, I don't want the other pause to happen either, but I think the pause on community schools.
The freeze on funding to existing levels.
Devastating to what's already happening in the schools.
And I've said that to our state delegates. I will say it to anybody who will listen to me. We have finally reached a point where if you use the report card, the Maryland State Department of Education report card as a marker, Tyler Heights, Germantown Elementary, and West Annapolis Elementary are all the same rank. They're all 4-star schools now.
Wow.
Hillsmere is now a 5-star school.
Wow.
And so many of our other schools are within a couple of tenths of a percentage of hitting that next mark. And to me, if I have to tell you why I get up in the morning and do this job, which I ask myself periodically,
Yes.
you know, it's the idea that you can live in an apartment right across the street from Tyler Heights, or you can live in a house in West Annapolis, and your child will go to a 4-star school.
Mhm.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. That's the goal here.
And bringing it full circle, part of the reason that some of those schools aren't 3 or 4 or 5 stars is because of attendance, which
Yep.
if we improve the transportation and the walkability and the bikeability, we
Yeah.
can improve attendance also.
100%, 100%. And so, you know, and in fact, where our schools have improved in many cases is because of attendance. So Hilltop Elementary, which is in the northern part of the county, which is a similarly very high farms, very high multi-language learner school, jumped from 2 to 4 stars in 1 year this year. And it's a community school. And again, the community schools funding allows for focus on what students need, what those additional wraparounds are that are needed to support those students and make sure that they have what they need to succeed. So,
speaking of walkability, I just wanted to share this before I drop off because I had a hard stop at 8:30. After our conversation last, I guess not last month, a couple of weeks ago about the obstructed snow routes, I reached out to Alderman Huntley, had a conversation. I know we identified that part of the problem was Public Works is supposed to enforce the sidewalk clearing, but they're busy plowing the streets. So he's worked on a bill that they're going to introduce soon to the council that is going to make it so that Public Works can contract with external firms for snow removal if it's not done 9 hours after the storm, and then charge people for it.
That's
and
wonderful.
hopefully that will, hopefully that'll be a way of getting sidewalks cleared more quickly. He investigated looking into, the shifting it to other departments, but there's staffing issues citywide. The code change that is being proposed would allow Public Works to work with the code enforcement staff to get that done. So just I know that was something that we talked a lot about in addition to buses, the sidewalk clearing, and just wanted to update people on where that was.
That's awesome, Fish. Thank you.
Fish, you just reminded me, I have to get off, unfortunately. Thank you all. If you have additional questions, you know where to find me. But mostly, thank you all for what you're doing. This community needs to really hang together right now. And I'm so appreciative also of you, Councilwoman Rodvian, for everything you're doing and all the others who are on there. So have a good night, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you, Dr.
Tobin.
Tobin. And yeah, we do need to
Councilwoman, and ditto to everything she just said about the commission here.
Good night.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Fish.
I've got to jump. Sorry to leave early, y'all. See ya.
Yep. No. So just really quickly, we have just the Renew You Yoga and Wellness Fair is on Saturday from 10 to 12. The Cool School Challenge is tomorrow. Annapolis Middle School has made over $6,000 in fundraising. Woo! A great event. So I know there are lots of schools in our cluster. These are the dates for the mobile food pantry.
Jess, do you know for the Polar Bear Plunge, can donations still be made tonight to qualify kids for like a sweatshirt or?
Yes, please do. There are a number of kids who are on the team that
I saw
don't
that.
have but we made it to 6,000, which means that Special Olympics is covering our buses, which is really awesome. So the PTA is not going to have to cover that cost, but I would love to see a lot of people. So I posted a thing on the Annapolis Middle School PTSA today saying just make $5, and a lot of people went on and they just gave like $5 to like each student who didn't have a donation, right? So
yeah,
if you want to share that, or just, I would love to see that more people. Mobile food pantry.
Great.
The Panther Pantry is open on Fridays. So bring your own bags. It's open for students from 3 to 4, 3:30 to 4. There is a youth visioning session on cars in Altonia Beach. This is also on the PTSA page, but I'll put it on the Education Commission page. But this is for kids to come out. And there is an Art Spark program happening at Pitt Moyer. Oh, sorry. That was it.
Thanks.
I missed that last one.
That's great.
So anyway, this is the warm line. Really important. That was a really important one. So this is the warm line for service requests and referrals in these cold days of winter.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
With all that information, yep. Laura.
Last time, isn't the deadline for ordering caps and gowns and things for A-High at the end of the month, or is that like, I thought it was the 30th, but I could be wrong.
I would really appreciate if you could find that information for me, because I may have had a slight breakdown this afternoon because I was like, I cannot find, I don't know, was I supposed to place an ad in the yearbook? Was I supposed to do, I cannot, the information's in too many places and I can't find it. And Mr. Omason might be like, you can no longer be the class of 2025 liaison because you're not able to do that. So
I
we can
remember
talk about that offline because it was a lot of stress happening.
But if you're an A-High parent, double check and make sure that if you have a senior or graduating senior, make sure that you've ordered your cap and gown, just in case.
Right.
And if we can just put in another plug for any and all of the commission members and any friend, neighbor, colleague that you can drag, come out to the Tuesday night County Executives Budget Town Hall at Annapolis High. I believe it's 6 p.m., right?
Right.
To advocate for budget funding, for funding for the social worker in the budget, for funding all these things that we need for education.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
All right, I will take a motion to adjourn. I don't know if that motion even passes because we don't have a quorum, but
I make a motion to adjourn.
unless anyone has anything else they'd like to bring up.
I second.
Any last words for the good of the order? Anyone opposed to the motion?
Thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for all you do.
I know this was a long meeting, but I really appreciate everyone being here. I think it was a really important